Greetings, Cardinals. So now we're going to start to do our motif analysis for our scene from Romeo and Juliet. M-O-T-I-F, motif, Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 3. We're on Study Sync page 413. Remember, a motif is a repeated image. A symbol, kind of a generalized definition of a symbol is an image with meaning. So here we go. Let's read through and look at our motifs. We've got flowers, faith, bright lights, night, birds and gardens, and the sea and the ocean. Romeo comes in. He says he jests at scars that never felt a wound. It's easy to laugh if you've never been hurt, right? But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. I put this down as one of our quotable quotes. Remember our parentheses, everything here? So this is a quotable quote about Juliet being the sun. You see words like light, sun, moon. He's saying Juliet is the sun. She's so bright and beautiful that the moon would be jealous. So we know that it's nighttime. He's looking up at a window and he's saying, hey, who's that? What's going on? I think it's going to be Juliet. Juliet's so bright and beautiful. She is like the sun. He goes back to speaking kind of directly to Juliet. He says, be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. He's saying there's no use in being jealous of the moon. That's what's going on in here. Green meaning jealousy. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster. So the moon and the stars are jealous of Juliet because she's so beautiful. He says, don't worry about that. Don't be about the night and the darkness. Cast it off. It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, here we go again. Romeo and Juliet, we got the love. Oh, that she knew she were. Juliet doesn't know. We have secret love. Juliet doesn't know that Romeo loves her. Or at least, maybe she doesn't know he's there. Remember in our Romeo and Juliet poem, they'd already met and everything. She just didn't know that he was there. He continues. Now, he's not talking directly to her anymore. He's going back to talking to us. So we've got kind of a shift right here. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses. I will answer it. That means she's looking in the distance, like she's looking for him, so he's going to answer. He's going to show up. I am too bold. 'Tis not to me she speaks. Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. He's saying her eyes are beautiful. What if her eyes were there, they in her head? The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars, as daylight doth a lamp. Her eyes in heaven would through the airy region stream so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night. So we have some of our motifs going on here. We have things being fair, meaning being blushed, being bright, being rosy, referring to the color of her pink cheeks. And again here, the brightness of her cheeks being pink and rosy. He's saying, oh, she's so beautiful. We see this now here. She leans her cheek upon her hand, her blushing, beautiful fair face that's so bright like all the stars in heaven that twinkle. She's like the daylight. Juliet is so bright and beautiful. We have a lot of imagery that all relates up here to our quotable quote that Juliet is the sun. And we can maybe illustrate our quotable quote to say Juliet is the sun. We have to be careful, though, if we remember in Romeo and Juliet, right, who maketh love bold, whom also maketh love blind. So we kind of know some foreshadowing maybe from our other poem that if Romeo is in love, he might be kind of losing sight of things. Let's move along. He says, oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. Again, we've got our motif, her pink blushing cheeks. Juliet says, I, me. Romeo says, she speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art as glorious to this night, being over my head as a winged messenger of heaven. 3 more hits for our symbol about brightness. Bing, bing, bing. We've got 3 more brightness symbols. We're going to see a lot of this imagery. Every time it's yellow, that's referring to brightness, sunlight, which again is referring back to Juliet here in our motif analysis. Remember, a motif is just a repeated image. And here we start to see our motifs mixed together. We see a synthesis of our motifs because we see them coming together to make a new idea. Juliet is bright and glorious and heavenly and shining. She's the sun, right? Like in July, it's very sunny. Juliet, July, those are kind of similar. The winged messenger in green, that's some of our bird symbolism, right? Birds and gardens, and we're going to start to see why birds and gardens go together. As is a winged messenger of heaven unto the white upturned wondering eyes of mortals that fall back to gaze on him when he bestrides the lazy pacing clouds and sails upon the bosom of the air. That's Shakespeare talk for flying. That whole thing just means fly. She's as beautiful and glorious as a flying bird or a flying angel. So we see the motif, the repeated image of brightness, the motif about birds and flight coming together. So he says Juliet's like a bright flying angel. Now Juliet comes out. Here's a famous, famous, famous line. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father. This is her princess hat because she's important. And this is, she's up on a balcony. She's up on a high tower. Right? Romeo, oh Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. His name? Why would his name be a problem? Why is his name a problem? Or, if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. Her name, family names. Let's see where this is going. Romeo himself is like, should I keep listening or should I talk? Shall I hear more? Should I keep listening or should I talk right now? He's going to keep listening. He's going to hear more. Let's us hear more. 'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. That kind of relates to our quote over here, our question over here. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. So he's Romeo Montague. She's Juliet Capulet. What's a Montague? It's not a hand nor foot, nor arm nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. She says your name is not a part of you. You equals not your name. There's more to you than just what they name you. There's more to you than just your family, maybe. Because why would a name be a problem? Well, maybe it's more about the issues of family. I'm making some predictions. She says, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So here we go with more of our motif of flowers and blushing cheeks, both of which are pink and are being compared together, right? Romeo starts out saying, Juliet is a rose, she has blushing pink cheeks. Then Juliet comes in and says, Romeo is also a rose. We can call him whatever we want, he's still a wonderful Romeo. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. No matter what we call him, if he's a Montague or not, she still love him. Romeo, doff thy name. That means get rid of it. Get rid of your name. Your name? No, get rid of it. And for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. And he comes in and says, I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. So he would have a new name. Hello, my name is, like those stickers, and he'd say, hello, my name is Love, and henceforth never will I be Romeo. He'll get rid of this Montague name that is such a problem. I've highlighted these in orange for our motif of faith, right? Because we're talking about taking an oath, being baptized, having a new name, swearing, taking an oath. We start to see these come in more together later as they begin to speak of saints, which refers back to a previous scene that we're not analyzing in our text as well. When they very first meet at the party, you can go back and look at that in the play or in any of the Romeo and Juliet movies. He says, I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo. I will change my name, and I will be nothing but the one who loves you. Aw, that's kind of sweet. She says, what man thou that thus be screened in night, so stumblest on my counsel? She's like, what? Who's going on? I can't see you. What's going on? It's dark, right? Thus be screened in night. They're hidden in darkness, which relates back to the first page. Romeo's saying that the only brightness in the night that they see is Juliet. He says, by a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. By name, dear saint, there's our faith motif again, is hateful to myself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I written, I would tear the word. So now they're having some wordplay about his name and how he would get rid of his name. Let's go on to our next page. Juliet replies, my ears have not yet drunk 100 words. So her ears are like hearing his words, right? My ears have not yet heard 100 words of Romeo's tongue's utterance, him talking. Yet I know the sound. Art thou not Romeo and a Montague? So now she's finally confirming that he's there, right? And here's our standard classic balcony scene where he's kneeling and reaching up and speaking to her. And she's up here in her bower, which is like a tower in a castle. She's up in her balcony, and now she's finally confirming, wait, is that Romeo? Is that what's going on? Is that you? And she's bright and shining like the sun. And oh, they just love each other so much. Okay. Romeo says, neither, fair saint, there's that faith motif again. If either thee dislike. She says, how did you get in here? She's like, how camest thou hither? Tell me, and wherefore? How did you get in? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb. So that's the garden. That's why it's in green again. And the place death, considering who thou art, if any of my kinsmen find thee here. She's like, dude, if my dad or my brothers or anybody sees you here, they are totally going to kill you. This is not the place that you need to be, because again, they're enemies because of what their names are. So remembering that they're enemies, I'm going to say enemies in name. We know that the Capulets and the Montagues do not get along. All right. You can kind of go, they don't like each other. Okay. She's like, how did you get in here? The garden has really high walls, and plus they'll kill you if they find you. He says, with love's light wings, I did or perch these walls, like over perch. He flew over the walls on the wings of love. Aww. He said, love made me so light it gave me wings, and it made me fly over these walls. For stony limits cannot hold love out. He says, walls cannot hold out love. And what love can do, that dares love attempt. Therefore thy kinsmen are no let to me. He says, I'm not afraid of them. They can try, right? But I'm not afraid of them because love has made him brave, just like in that quote from Romeo and Juliet. She says, if they do see thee, they will murder thee. That's sure, they'll murder you. Alack, there lies more peril, that's danger, in thine eye than in 20 of their swords. Oh, he says, oh, Juliet, your eyes are so beautiful that it's more dangerous for me to look one moment at your beautiful face than for me to be attacked by 20 swords. I'm not going to draw 20 swords. I'm going to draw 4 swords. And then I'm going to be like, times 5. Because that's 4 times 5 is 20 swords. So there's 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I am proof against their enmity, their danger, their attack. Because love makes him so bold and brave, he's not afraid. She said, I would not for the world they saw thee here. She's like, don't be seen. He said, I have night's cloak to hide me from their sight. It's dark. How's anybody going to see him in the dark? Right? It's nighttime. We got that night motif going on. I have note's cloak to hide me from their sight. And but thou love me, let them find me here. My life were better ended by their hate than death prorogued, wanting of thy love. Oh my goodness. He's saying, I'm so sad. I miss you so much. It would be better to just be dead and killed by your guards than to not be around you. That is hyperbolic. That is some very hyperbolic hyperbole. That's dramatic exaggeration. Drama. By whose direction foundst out thou this place? How did you know where I live? She says. By love that first did prompt me to enquire. He lent me counsel, and I lent him eyes. I am no pilot yet. Wert thou as far as that vast shore washed with the farthest sea, I would adventure for such merchandise. That's a good quotable quote on our sea motif, our ocean motif. We can draw some waves, some ocean waves, maybe a little boat. So on our sea and ocean motif, he's talking about adventure. He wouldn't be afraid of any danger. Even if Juliet was across the farthest sea, he would still find her. She's like, how did you get in here? He said, love made me so brave and so light that I just flew over the walls. And I'm not afraid of being murdered. She says, you're going to be seen. He says, I can hide in the dark. She's like, how did you find out where I live? He was like, I would follow you to the ends of the earth. I love you that much. Whew, that's a lot. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a lot. That's almost a little embarrassing. It's so romantic and sweet. She said, thou know'st the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush be paint my cheek. She's like, it's dark, but if it wasn't so dark, you could see that I'm totally blushing. She's turning all red because she's kind of embarrassed. For that which thou hath heard me speak tonight. She's embarrassed that he heard her say all these romantic things. Fain would I dwell on form, fain deny what I have spoke, but farewell compliment. Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say I, and I will take thy word. Promising love, swearing love, getting into our faith motifs about promising love and having that sort of take the place of their name, which when Juliet speaks of it, it sort of reminds me of how traditionally in Western culture, women will often take the last name of the man that they marry. So maybe swearing and all this is of taking oaths for love, swearing oaths of love, taking names for love. Maybe she's starting to drop hints about marriage. Perhaps. Question mark. Let's take a look at our quotable quote. Yet, if thou swearst, thou mayst prove false. At lovers' perjuries, they say Jove laughs. Now, Jove is referring to the ancient Roman god Jupiter. And they're saying this great and powerful ancient god, when he sees people promise and swear things and break their promises, which is what perjury is, right? When you lie, when you break a promise, he laughs. He knows lovers can be false. She's like, do you really love me? Really? Oh, gentle Romeo. Let's see what her question continues with. Oh, gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. There's the word right there in our faith motif. Remember, a motif is a repeated image. When we see these repeated images can start to build meaning in our text. She says, if you love me, promise it. And then she kind of takes a shift. She says, or if thou thinkst I am too quickly won, I'll frown and be perverse and say thee nay, which means no. So thou wilt woo. To woo, she's like, try to convince me. She's talking about courtship. She's saying, be romantic. If you already love me, Romeo, say that you love me. Or if you think that that's too fast, I'll be sad and I'll say that I don't love you so that you'll try to convince me to love you. Okay, well now they're just kind of going back and forth. But else for the world, in truth, fair Montague, I am too fond. Oh, so this is kind of, she'd be lying. She's like, if you don't want me to say I love you yet, then I won't, but I guess I do, and therefore thou mayst think my her behavior, light. She's like, you know, even though it's too fast, she thinks she already likes him too much. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true. She says, I'm not lying, I'm honest, I really mean it. Than those that have more cunning to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess, but that thou overheardst ere I was ware. This means before she knew he was listening. My true love passion, therefore pardon me, and not impute this yielding to light love, which the dark night hath so discovered. She says, I thought I was alone, talking to myself in the dark. I do have all of these feelings for you, but I really shouldn't have told you that so soon. She would rather have him woo her with some romantic courtship, but she said all this stuff before she really knew that he was listening. Okay, we're coming up on a famous quote alert. Romeo says, Lady, but by yonder blessed moon I swear, that tips with silver all these fruit tree tops. So, a little bit of garden motif that we missed, but that's all right. There we go. By yonder blessed moon I swear. We have that imagery of brightness, the stars, the silver, the moon, her orb. He says, I swear by the moon that I love you. Here's our famous quote alert. Juliet says, oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb. Juliet says the moon doesn't stay one way, right? The moon has all these different phases of the moon. That doesn't bode well as a metaphor for love, right? If love changes, that's not good. We want love to last forever. We don't want love to prove variable, like a variable in math. We don't want that kind of love, although we do love math. Math is wonderful, but we want love to be constant, not changing and variable like the inconstant moon. So Romeo says, what shall I swear by? All this orange imagery of swearing oaths of names and faith. He says, what shall I swear by? She says, do not swear at all. Or, if thou wilt, if you have to, swear by thy gracious self, which is the God of my idolatry, and I'll believe thee. She says, if you have to swear to something, swear to yourself. Instead of swearing to God, swear to yourself. She's basically saying, Romeo, you are a god to me. Whoa, that's a lot. But we are reading Romeo and Juliet. We knew that was going to happen. And she'll believe him. She'll believe with our faith motif that that's true. Romeo says, if my heart's dear love, she interrupts him. She wants to keep going. Well, do not swear. No, she changed her mind. So she's saying, don't change a lot like the variable inconstant moon, but she's going to go ahead and change her mind, right? Although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden. Rash means fast, not like a rash like you're itchy, like you got a mosquito bite. Fast. Oops, I was saying rash and I wrote fast. There we go. Too fast. Too fast. She's not ready for this. Too like the lightning, with which doth cease to be, ere one can say it lightens. So he before was saying she's like light, and now she's turning that metaphor and saying, well, lightning can go too fast. Sweet good night. Look at all the different colors. Look at all the mixed motifs we have in here. We have our pink flower motif. We have our night motif. We have our brightness lightning motif. Sweet good night, this bud of love by summer's ripening breath may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. She says, this love is just a little bud, but it'll grow, it'll be a flower, right? It's going to grow with time, just like a tree will grow. Good night, as sweet repose and rest come to thy heart as that within my breast. She says, I hope you can calm down and sleep, and I will calm down and sleep, and everybody's going to go to sleep. Romeo says, oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? And Juliet says, well, what satisfaction canst thou have tonight? He says, the exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine, which makes me think, marriage vows? He wants to get married right now in the middle of the night because they've already said they love each other. Juliet's onto that too. Juliet says, I already promised that I love you. She says, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it, and yet I would it were to give again. Romeo said, wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love? Juliet says, but to be frank and give it thee again, and yet I wish but for the thing I have. So they're saying, would you promise to love me over and over and over? Would you take back the promise just to be able to promise it again? Which again makes me think, promising to love someone over and over, like infinity, like eternal love, like marriage, with all of this imagery, these motifs that we have going on. She continues with our ocean motif. She says, my bounty is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep, the more I give to thee. The more I have, for both are infinite. So now our motif about the sea is combining with our motif about faith for a synthesis that both are infinite, both are eternal. I think they're hinting. And then Juliet's nurse calls for her. She says, I hear some noise within. To Romeo, she says, dear love, adieu. That means goodbye. Bye. Anon, sweet nurse. That's like, I'm coming, just a second. Sweet Montague, be true. She's talking to Romeo again. Stay but a little, and I will come again. She's like, wait, hold on, I'll be right back. He says, oh, blessed, blessed night. I am afeard, being in night, all this is but a dream, too flattering sweet to be substantial. So we have another synthesis that makes this a really good quotable quote. We have the night imagery coming in together with our faith imagery, and this word sweet that they're often using, that I'm highlighting in pink, with our floral imagery, because flowers are sweet. They say Romeo by any other name, a rose would be as sweet. So Romeo's that sweet rose, love is their sweet rose. He says that, Juliet comes right back in. 3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent of love be honorable, thy purpose marriage, ooh, see, I knew it. If thy bent of love be honorable, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow by one that I'll procure to come to thee. She'll send him a messenger. Where and what time wilt thou perform the rite? She says, okay, if you're ready to get married, I'll send a messenger tomorrow. Tell me when and where, and all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world, which I highlighted with our brightness motif symmetry, because it made me think of money being bright like gold, and Juliet is bright and fortunate. Her nurse calls for her, Madam. Juliet responds to her nurse, I come anon. Back to Romeo. But if thou meanest not well, I do beseech thee. The nurse is interrupting her. Madam, like, hurry up. By and by I come, like, nurse, I'm coming. To cease thy suit and leave me to my griefs. She says, Romeo, if thou meanest not well, cease thy suit and leave me to my grief. If you don't really love me, if you intend to break my heart and you don't want to get married like tomorrow, tell me right now so that I can start sadly crying. She says, tomorrow I'll send her messenger. Romeo says, so thrive, my soul. Juliet says, 1,000 times good night. Romeo says, 1,000 times the worse to want thy light. He says, it's not a good night, it's worse. It's not a good night. It's a terrible night. Look at all of our motifs. Remember, a motif is a repeated image in literature. And here's our famous quote alert. Love goes toward love as schoolboys from their books in a hurry, but love from love toward school with heavy looks. Oh, to leave your love, that makes you sad. Now Juliet's coming back in. Let's see how this wraps up. Hist, Romeo, hist, for a falconer's voice to loo this tassel gentle back again. She's repeating his name over and over like a bird call, trying to call him back. That's this falconer imagery, and that's why we've got it green for this motif of birds in gardens. Bondage is hoarse and may not speak aloud, else I would tear the cave where echo lies, and make her airy tongue more hoarse than mine with repetition of my Romeo's name, Romeo. And he says, it is my soul that calls upon my name. How silver sweet sound lovers' tongues by night, like softest music to attending ears. Romeo, my dear, at what o'clock tomorrow shall I send thee? By hour of 9. So she's going to send her messenger at 9 o'clock. Juliet says, I will not fail. 'Tis 20 years till then. I have forgot why I did call thee back. Let me stand here till thou remember it. She's like, I forgot why I was calling for you. And he's like, I'll wait. And they're both just standing there, staring at each other. And that's why I wrote, you hang up. No, you hang up first. No, you. Let's both hang up at the same time. He says, I'll stand here till thou remember it. I shall forget to have thee still stand there, remembering how I love thy company. And I'll still stay to have thee still forgetting any other home than this. He says, I'll stand here until I've forgotten anything other than just standing here and waiting for you. That's very sweet. 'Tis almost morning. Here we go with a lot of bird imagery here. I would have thee gone, and yet no farther than a wanton's bird, that lets it hop a little from her hand, like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves, and with a silk thread plucks it back again, so loving jealous of his liberty. She says, I want you to leave, but only like a pet bird that's kept on a little string, like a little prisoner, kept on a little string that you can just pull right back. He says, I wish I were your bird. He'd love to be her pet, to be cared for, right? To be loved. Juliet says, sweet, so would I, yet I should kill thee with much cherishing. She says, I'd love you so much, I'd crush you like a little bird that you just hug and hug until you squish it. Famous, famous, famous quote alert. Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow. Sleep dwell upon thine eyes, says Romeo, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep in peace, so sweet to rest. Hence I will to my ghostly father's cell, back to that family, back to the Montagues, who are the enemies of Juliet's family, right? Hence I will to my ghostly father's cell, his help to crave, and my dear hap to tell. He says, ooh, I don't think this is going to go well. I think I'm going to have to keep wanting their help. They're not going to help me. His dear hap, what has happened to him, he's going to have to keep that a secret. Like without the sun, without Juliet, things become ghostly and everything dies. Romeo's soul needs Juliet's light or it becomes ghostly. Woo! That's all for now, Cardinals. Remember to dream big, work hard, give back. Cards care.